Saskatoon's oldest building still on its original site. In 1885, it was used as a field house for Canadian soldiers. It is now a museum and heritage site. It is said to have 3 ghosts within its walls: a cranky gentleman that sulks in the basement, and children that can be heard laughing in one of the bedrooms. Some people also claim to see strange figures walking through the house at night.
We were there one night, about midnight, went snooping through the house and with a flashlight, and the flashlight went dead on us, which usually doesn't happen. So we ran out to the car, and the car wouldn't start. And we waited around there for about half an hour. Finally, the car started and took off. That was pretty much the end of that first story that had anything to do with me. We went there quite a few times. Lots of times nothing happened there, of course. But one time I was there, and being a stupid young kid, I kicked a couple of basement windows in, being a smart ass. And a few years later, I was going past there with a tractor and baler. And I had this really weird feeling just as I drove by the house. I was looking at it, and I felt, guilt for what I'd done. And a really strange sensation chill went down my spine. And I looked down at my odometer, and it spun around about 3 or 4 times. And quit. Never did work again in that tractor. And I decided from that point on I would never go back there. So that was that was probably 25, 27 years ago, and I've never set foot in the place again.
Suite number 9 of the apartment building, built in 1914, is rumored to be haunted by a nurse in 1920s uniform. She fills bathtubs and leaves quarters and dimes around the room. She has also been known to sit at the end of the bed and play with feet. In the oldest cemetery in the city of Saskatoon, the ghosts of pioneers can occasionally be seen wandering among the tombstones. Many of the graves in this cemetery are occupied by deceased children and babies. A citizen of the area says the cemetery has a lot of energy to it.
She had a visitor in her house that she did not realize who it was and what was going on. Stuff would move in her house, fall off her cupboards, and move the clock around. And one evening she had a chair pushed up against her door, but on the other side of the door, and nobody was in there. And how would you do that from the inside? So, and then she would always feel somebody watching her as well. She found newspapers open on the, it's like a deck, it's a covered porch, I guess is what it was, and it was locked. Nobody could unlock it from the outside. And it was cold, it was through winter, so who's going to read a newspaper through winter in a cold porch? So anyway, realizing what was going on, she decided to move out of that house because she felt it was a ghost, and it was. Later finding out that a boy, between 20 and 30, had committed suicide in that house. So that's my story.
We had some friends come out from Saskatoon, and we were just sitting around talking, and the subject of the hall being having ghosts came up, and so they wanted to go over and see, because I didn't realize they were into this supernatural stuff. So we walked over, and it was unplanned, unrehearsed, and George went with my husband, and Sue came with me, and afterwards we all met, and they both saw an elderly gentleman sitting in one of the chairs in the hall. He had a uniform on. It wasn't military, it wasn't military. They said it was more like a commissionaire uniform. And then George started to walk towards the stage, and the curtains were drawn across the stage. And all of a sudden he stopped in the center of the hall, and he says, I can't go any further. He says, there's somebody watching me from the stage. Like, he says he just got this cold feeling all of a sudden, and he said he could see, like, there was his face peeking out through the curtains on the stage. So he turned around and came back. He says, no, he says, I can't go any further. And basically they just walked around the hall, and she's really into this, like, she'd walk around with her hands open because it's kind of a sign that you're not scaring them, like you're there to, you want them to come forward if they are there, like, you know, arms or hands open. And she went into every, like, nook and cranny, like she went upstairs, like in the old projection room, like, but she didn't see anything after that. And they just kind of walked around, but they did see that elderly gentleman, and he said he saw that somebody peeking through the curtains on the stage. And then basically we just left, and as we're walking down the street, they both turned and they said they could see faces watching us leave on that old projection room, like the 3rd floor. They could see, he said there were faces looking out the windows watching us leave.
So one time we were at the hall where we have our dance classes, and we went there to practice our dances, and our teacher wasn't there. And all of a sudden we heard like a girl screaming in the basement, and none of us were down there. We got pretty freaked out, and the doors started getting all wacky and crazy and stuff.
Something strange